40 for Rateable Crest Titans.
Welcome to the special stage rally show in association with the Mini Rally Challenge. The Phil Price Memorial Woodpecker Rally has a new look, and no, I don't mean the fog, although that's new. It's over in mid-Wales for this year's event, and it is round 6 of the Pro Tyre BTRDA Rally Championship, as well as hosting the Welsh Rally Championship and the British Historic Rally Championship. And we're going to start with action on these fantastic stages in the fog, very dramatic, coming up next. But here's what else we've got coming up in today's show. As well as highlights from the Woodpecker Stages, we'll have action from the final round of the Pro Tyre Asphalt Rally Championship on the Hillsford Stages. And we head back to the gravel once again for Trackrod Rally Yorkshire, where we catch up with a number of championships, including the Mini Rally Challenge. But first, it's on to those foggy Woodpecker Stages. So it's a fresh new look for the Woodpecker Stages, not that you could see it for the fog. Leading the way after the morning stages were Ollie Mellors and Max Freeman. 10 seconds the advantage after 4 stages. Elliot Payne and Patrick Walsh didn't have to worry about Mellors as far as BTRDA points were concerned, and BTRDA points is where their minds would be at. They lead the way in the championship, but as we all know, they are never going to want to settle for second place here on these stages. Matt Hurst and Declan Deere were out in a new car this weekend. Big anticipation from the fans and hopes from the team that it would give them more reliability than the Fiesta. They were going well, leading after stage 1, but a trip into a ditch would see them lose a bit of time, slipping down the order quite a way as a result. We haven't seen much of Perry Gardner and Jack Bowen recently, but they clearly still had some good pace and they were trying hard. They end the morning 3rd place overall, enough to give them the current lead in the Pirelli Welsh Championship standings. A little way behind Gardner on the leaderboard were Liam Clark and Emily Easton Page. They were 3rd in the BTRDA standings, hoping to collect some more points towards their season tally. As indeed were flying B13 pair Russ Thompson and Stephen Link. They were here in a good position in both the BTRDA and Welsh Championship standings, so they'd want a good result from today to help with both of those campaigns. Daniel Sigurdsson and Asta Sigurdottir, another pair who always impress when they come out on these stages, and they were enjoying a good season in their step up to the Polo R5 with a Fiesta trip in between. They start the event off well in 6th place by the midpoint, but they'd be pushing through the afternoon to try and make that a bit higher as far as their leaderboard position was concerned. The gap back to James Giddings and Alan Davies was a little bigger. They were 41 seconds back from the Icelandic duo up ahead, to be exact, but their 7th place at the moment had them in 3rd as far as the Welsh Championship positions were concerned today. Joe Price and Chris Brooks have always gone well on this event in the past, being their local, but even now the event had moved away from home, they were still impressing out there on the stages, leading the way in the rear-wheel drive crews from 8th place overall. With Price not registered for the British Historic Championship points, it would be left to George Lepley and Dale Bowen to lead the way as far as that was concerned. They take the Galant to 9th place overall for now. And with that Group A soundtrack up ahead, rounding out the top 10 at the midpoint of the day were Trevor Gamble and Phil Kenny. They were going well as well, just 13 seconds back from Lepley up ahead. The fight surely on into the afternoon stages. The BHRC fight, meanwhile, would continue outside the top 10 leaderboard, with Nick Elliott and Dave Price lying in 11th overall, and that would see them 2nd on the Historic Championship leaderboard for now. The real fight for the championship, though, would be with Seb Perez and Gary McElhaney in the Porsche. They were going well. In fact, they were level on times with Elliott after these 4 stages, and it would be the Porsche pair's closest rivals, Mark Higgins and Carl Williamson, who lie just behind them on the leaderboard. There were only 2 seconds in it as well, so the afternoon would be all to play for and would be a treat for the fans. In the BTRDA Silver Star, it was Andy Davison and Tom Murphy taking the lead over the morning stages. They were leading the category from 32nd place overall in that Sunbeam. And second in the Silver Star behind them were Lewis Hooper and Rhys Edwards, not who you want in your rearview mirror, metaphorically speaking. A few positions back on the overall results in 36th overall. Hooper may have been second in Silver Star, but second in the BTRDA two-wheel drive crews would be Dylan Fowler-Bishop and Dan Evans. They were leading the way in the Bronze Star and were actually between the two Silver Star hopefuls on the overall timesheets. And second in the Bronze Star behind them was Joe Evett. Richard Wise alongside, wine gums in hand. 38th place overall for the pair after stage 4. So with the morning stages complete, here's what the overall leaderboard was shaping up like here at the Phil Price Memorial Woodpecker Stages. On to the afternoon stages then here on this all-changed Woodpecker Stages rally. And there wouldn't be any change to the Bronze Star results. Joe Evett and Richard Wise taking that second place in the category this weekend. That, of course, meaning it was the Bronze Star win for Dylan Fowler-Bishop and Dan Evans. They went well to take the win in that category by 26 seconds. No change either in the Silver Star for Lewis Hooper and Rhys Edwards. They still hold on to second place. A good end to the rally for the pair, who miss out on victory by 33 seconds. And the crew in that winning place were Andy Davison and Tom Murphy, exactly where they'd looked at being all day long. First in the Silver Star, and they gained a couple of places overall now into 30th position. Matt Hurst and Declan Deere had had a bit of a rough start in the new car. Not the finish that they'd wanted after this morning's problems in the ditch. But once they were going again, the times were impressive. The pair winning 6 out of the 8 stages today. So at least they could take that with them to the next round. On to the top 10 now, and we'd see a number of the British historic crews now inside that top 10 leaderboard. But frustratingly for Nick Elliott and Dave Price, it will be a drop down to 3rd in the BHRC, which was still better luck than George Lepley, who didn't even pass our cameras in the afternoon. A bit of a change around in the Welsh Championship positions would now see Tom Llewellyn and Sean Williams lying 3rd in the Welsh Championship standings by the final stage of the rally, 9th place overall. Mark Higgins and Carl Williamson, despite a valiant effort in that TR7 V8, were unable to overhaul the Porsche, so they'd have to settle for 2nd, a position which would also reflect the championship standings after this round, and means that it's maximum BHRC points this weekend for Seb Perez and Gary McElhaney. They keep everyone else at bay, taking the win in the historic championship by 8 seconds. Back to the modern cars, and it would be 6th place overall for James Giddings and Aled Davies. And that would see them taking 2nd in the Pirelli Welsh Championship Crews. For Liam Clark and Emily Easton Page, it would be 5th place. They drop a little time through the afternoon to drop down the order a little from their previous 3rd place overall. Some of that movement will be down to a move the right way as far as Daniel Sigurdsson and Asta Sigurdottir were concerned. They climb up a few positions into 4th, getting them 3rd place on the BTRDA podium as well. Frustratingly though, we'd lose Perry Gardner and Jack Bowie. They went off the stage, losing too much time trying to get back on again, eventually going OTL. So that gave Russ Thompson and Stephen Link a little easier step up in the standings. Still a tough event. With the increase in pace in the afternoon, though, they were able to take the top spot in the Welsh Championship and 2nd in the BTRDA. What a result for them after today. A measured drive then would see championship favourites Elliot Payne and Patrick Walsh taking another maximum points haul from this round. They didn't need to win the event. It would, of course, have been nice. But nice doesn't cut it at this end of a championship battle, and 2nd overall, and those top BTRDA points were plenty enough. That all meaning that leaders of the rally from early doors, Ollie Mellors and Max Freeman, keep things neat and tidy as much as possible, of course, to take victory here on the Woodpecker Stages. So at the end of a changed but equally popular Woodpecker Stages rally, Here's how the leaderboard shaped up. From the gravel of the Pro Tyre BTRDA Rally Championship to the asphalt of the Pro Tyre Motorsport UK Asphalt Rally Championship for the final time this year. Here comes round 8, the Hills Ford Stages, 12 stages and some fast-paced action and some gloves-off battles throughout the field to look forward to. Fastest out of the blocks on the short opening day will be Mark Kelly and Will Atkins. Mark, of course, last year's winner and looking to make it another victory here for the trophy cabinet. Second place at the end of day 1 will be Rob Swan and Tom Woodburn, the pair 7 seconds behind Kelly at the end of stage 2. And after a promising run on the previous round, it will be a strong start here as well for Sam Touzle and Ross Whittock. Clearly trying in places. They end the day with 3rd overall. Fourth at this stage was a very happy Roger Duckworth. Alan Cook alongside. The pair were actually one of a number of crews all sharing the same overall time going into day 2. So their 4th place was actually joint 3rd with Touzle. And joining both of them on the same time again will be Darren Atkinson and Harry Stubbs, leading the way in an impressive two-wheel drive performance at this stage as well. For Neil Roskell and Di Roberts, it was a last-ditch attempt at the title. For now, it will be 6th place. They get the junction a little wrong the first time through, nudging the bail and making the corner a little wider the next time through this double-run stage. Not that I'm suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that they did that on purpose. Former asphalt champ Steve Wood, Kenny Hull alongside was just as fast. Their equal times with Roskell on these opening stages set up a thrilling battle for day 2. They end the day though with 7th place overall in the Citroën. Will Hill and Richard Crozier had already sewn up the class championship, so it would be a weekend out in the Rally 2 car for the pair. And they were inside the top 10 overall for now. 8th place on the event that bears the Hills Ford name above the door. Second of our two-wheel drive crews on the order after this short day will be Hugh James and Lewis Sim. The pair on an equal time to Hill up ahead as well in the Rally 2 Fiesta. So great going for the Escort pair. And rounding out the top 10 were Phil Hopkins and Sam Allen. The Evo pair just a single second back. And none of the top 10 separated by more than a few seconds at most. A driver not having much luck on the opening night will be Simon Bowen. Craig Simkis co-driving this weekend again. They put the car off the road on the opening stage. They do get it out again and would continue, albeit way down the order, but luckily the incident not quite as dramatic as it looked. So with a short opening day under our crew's belts, it gives us a leaderboard that looks like this. On to day 2 of the Hills Ford Stages, and we would unfortunately lose Mark Kelly and Will Atkins. They retire on stage 6, which somehow characterises their season. They wouldn't be the only ones either. Brad Cole and Jamie Vaughan had been out in a brand new car. That Rally 2 Fiesta had caused quite a stir. They would sadly though retire after 9 stages. And for Sam Touzle and Ross Whittock, it would be stage 11 that causes them to have to retire after going off and getting the car going again only to be too far over the time limit to get a result. We're on to the top 10 then, and it had been a hard-fought top 10 throughout the rally. No change in that 10th spot. Phil Hopkins and Sam Allen keep hold of that position to the finish, and they are delighted inside that Evo. We do see some change now though for Steve Simpson and Mark Glenister. They move up the leaderboard into 9th place. A small overshoot in the morning wasn't enough to lose them any significant time, and it didn't dent their charge. Darren Atkinson and Harry Stubbs, meanwhile, would drop down the overall results a little since last night's stages, but they still remain inside the top 10, taking an impressive 8th place finish, as well as still being the highest placed two-wheel drive crew. This weekend would see a popular return for Ed Fossey and Gareth Parry over for the event in the Proton Millington. Plenty of local support from way back home in Jersey. And it would be a good weekend for the pair as well, ending the rally 7th place overall. Just ahead of them by the finish would be fellow Jerseyman James Laby. Sean Cunniff alongside. It hadn't been that way until the final stage of the rally though, when the pair would end the rally just a single second ahead of Fossey, who had been up ahead until that point. Rob Swan and Tom Woodburn didn't quite manage to hold on to the second place that they'd held on day one overnight. But the short opening stage really wasn't an indicator of the true pace of the event. Despite an impressive performance, they end the rally in 5th place. Roger Duckworth and Alan Cook, another crew, back on the pace, spending the day not thinking that they were on the pace at all, but the results were telling us otherwise. They ended the rally a very respectable 4th place overall, just 17 seconds back from the podium. And it's a very championship-themed podium. It would be 3rd place for former champions Steve Wood and Kenny Hull. They go into the final stage with just 1 second to 2nd place, but it wasn't to be for them. They'd have to settle for 3rd this time out. And that close fight had been with this pair, Neil Roskell and Di Roberts. They only had 1 second of a lead before that final stage, so it was all to play for. And thankfully, they managed to put in a great time in the final stage, taking that 2nd place by just 3 seconds and ending a fairly impressive championship season on a high. But there was no stopping our newly crowned Asphalt Rally champions, Callum Black and Jack Morton. They power towards a final victory of the season in style, with a strong advantage of almost a minute and a half by the finish. So with the Hills Ford stages complete and a fitting end to an exciting season, here's how the Pro Tyre Motorsport UK Asphalt Rally Championship season ended. A final overall results sheet from the final weekend here in the Malvern Hills. Last time out on the dirt in the British Cross Country Championship, it was victory for Aston Cox, narrowly beating Paul Rowlands to that win and making it 2 winners from 2 rounds in the championship so far. Now, after a short break, our championship crews were back in action and sticking with Wales as the location for round 3, this time on a fantastic piece of land owned by championship sponsors Parr Homes, which would provide a 7-mile challenging course to test man and machine. On to the first runs of day 1 then, and it would be the lead for Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd, coming out of the blocks keen to get a win on the board and trying hard from the off. A double puncture by the end of the first run was less than ideal, but by the end of the second run of the day, they'd moved up into that lead. Fastest over the first run were Richard Kershaw and Andy Powell, but that good run for them early on would come to an end. They ran out of fuel on the second run, the fuel gauge in the car giving a false reading and causing them to stop midway round the course, putting them down in a frustrated 22nd overall. Second at this stage on the leaderboard would be Ian Gregg and Jason Noakes, and they were going well. The times were good, and they end the morning with 21 seconds to the leaders at this stage. Just behind Gregg and Noakes in third will be Jordan Albury and Steve Gardner. A strong start for the pair who were on the pace right from the off and settling into an early podium position as things looked for now. It had been touch and go, meanwhile, just getting here for Aston Cox and Simon Kerfoot. They get the gearbox back from being rebuilt, having to fit it on the Friday, arriving late at the event to get the car ready. They make a good start though, putting those woes behind them. Just 1 puncture on the first run and settling into 4th place for now. A bent rim would be the only issue for Ben Cundy and Andy Greeny. They make a last-minute decision to do this round after looking at the points and realising that they could take the trophy class in the championship this weekend with a finish. And it was a slightly more cautious start to this round than we had at round 1 for our winners of the opening round, Jason Rowlands and Craig Davies. They end the morning's first few runs 6th place, 30 seconds back from Dad Paul up ahead. So, 2 runs complete, plenty of strife through the leaderboard at this stage and some early drama as well, but things were fast out there. The results at the top are shaping up like this. On to the second half of the opening day then. And this weekend would be a different car to usual for Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd, reverting back to the old car. The new one had given them nothing but problems so far. Things going well on the electrical side of things, but punctures had been the main story of the day for our overnight leaders. Jason Rowlands and Craig Davies had managed to climb up the leaderboard now and had moved into second place overall. It didn't look like they would catch the leaders on pace or merit alone, but that wasn't going to stop them from trying. And from being there, of course, should anything happen. There would be another puncture to end the day for Aston Cox and Simon Kerfoot, but they were still putting in the times and would round out the podium positions at the end of day one. Not such good fortune, though, for Jordan Albury and Steve Gardiner. Their third place was gone, throttle body sensor problems putting them out and down in 16th with a last run maximum. Despite help from the Rowlands looking for a spare, they were unable to start again on day two. Mike Faulkner and Peter Foy would reach the end of the day with a second-hand looking car, that was for sure. They hit one of the culverts with too much speed, crashing the front end into the other side. Luckily just cosmetic, but there would now be some repair work to get that car ready for day two. Things had been going great on the course for Ian Gregg and Jason Noakes. They end the day in 5th overall. However, the same couldn't be said for their time off the stages. Ian twisting his ankle in service. That, unfortunately, ultimately preventing him from driving safely on day two. It was game over for the pair. A gruelling day one complete then here in Wales. Here's how the leaderboard is shaping up at the top. On to day two of the action then. And there'd be change in the weather as we see some fog for the first run of the day. But there wouldn't be any change in the lead. Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd still holding on to that position. And just like the previous day, they'd end up with a puncture by the end of the opening run of the day as well. Despite a valiant effort to this point, it was game over for Jason Rowlands and Craig Davies. The pair have electrical issues and wouldn't be able to get things fixed into day two. Things were going the right way, though, for Aston Cox and Simon Kerfoot now. They were now in second place, the lead looking too far ahead to chase on merit alone. But as always, in this game, you have to be there and keep the pressure on just in case issues crop up ahead, and they often do. Things were still going well, meanwhile, for Mike Faulkner and Peter Foy. They were in a podium position and looking good out there on this 7-mile course. They do damage the front a little more on one of the rough sections of the course, but the main damage to that had already been done, of course. Things were still going to plan for Ben Cundy and Andy Greening. They were now into 4th overall. Not bad for their quote of just trying to get to the finish. They had about a minute and a half to the podium, so they wouldn't be doing anything silly like chasing for that. And it was still a smooth-looking run for Alan Kirkland and Sean Sabin Farrell. They end the first half of the day in 5th overall. They were, though, starting to get into a bit of a no-man's land on the times. So just the final few runs to go, but who would make it to the end? That was anything but certain right now. But for now, here's how the leaderboard is looking. It will be a very relieved 10th place finish for Dave and Tony Hooper. They wouldn't have expected that if you'd told them it at the end of day one. And what was even more of a surprise to this pair would be that the issues for Watson in the class would mean that Hooper also takes home the class victory this weekend. Richard Kershaw and Andy Powell then would break a drive shaft in a penultimate run. They were on a big charge, but just pushed too hard perhaps. It cost them another maximum. They were all set to call it a day and just get a maximum for the final run, which would have put them in 14th overall. But a last-minute decision to get the car sorted and back out secured them a 7th place overall finish instead. And that, you never know, could just be crucial come the end of the season. For Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson, it will be 8th place to end the event. They were still going well in the second day of the competition, sticking around in the top of our results and deserving to be there as well with this pace. Martin Cox and Aaron Birch, meanwhile, would just be glad to get to the finish line. The car ending the event with bent wishbones on the front and rear and a shock on its way out as well. But to add insult to injury, they'd also get a puncture on the final run, which would cost them a place overall, dropping them to 7th. All of that drama meant it was 6th place for Phil Bayliss and Lance Murphy. It hadn't been a drama-free run for the pair themselves. They'd had a puncture as well, thankfully not losing them much time. It did, however, put them off the road briefly. And luckily for the pair, there was a track lower down that they were able to rejoin and continue on the course. How often can you say that? Alan Kirkland and Sean Sabin Farrell would get a puncture themselves on the 4th run on day 2, but it would be a vibration on the car, causing them to back off a little on the final run of the event just to get home in one piece. It was a good decision. They take 5th place overall. Ben Cundy and Adam Greeny do exactly what they came here to do this weekend and finish. That means the pair provisionally take the Trophy Championship title this season with the points from this round. And they do it in style as well. 4th place to end the event. No change in the podium positions though. We see Mike Faulkner and Peter Foy keeping things going the right way and claiming their best results so far. They'd be glad the event was over though. The car now down on traction and only running in 2-wheel drive, not to mention looking a little second-hand in places. For Aston Cox and Simon Kerfert, it would be 2nd place. Not the repeat of victory from last time out that they came here looking for, perhaps, but they were happy with 2nd. Some good points to add to the leaderboard for their championship tally, and it would put them a step closer to title glory. But all of that and 2 days of fast, grueling, dramatic action means taking victory were Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd. And they weren't done with their own drama either. Punctures again, going from 9 in total this weekend. This win, though, making it 3 winners from 3 rounds so far. This really is anyone's championship to play for when the racing is this good. Here's a look at how those final results were decided. Trackrod Rally Yorkshire would play host to the next round of the Mini Rally Challenge, and the crews would have a night stage to get them settled into the Yorkshire forests. What a spectacle. It was certainly a challenge to start off the event as well, as they guided these minis through Dalby Forest. The next day would see the crews tackle 3 more stages in the daylight. But sadly for Jacob Neal and Russell Thompson, it would be a trip into a ditch. Not that the pair were making a habit of that, of course. Winners last time out, but the luck had run out this time round in Yorkshire. We'd also lose Guy Butler and Adam Fern. They were going well, but had run out of road on stage 4, ending their rally parked in the trees. So on to those finishers here in the Mini Rally Challenge then, and it will be 10th place overall for Kevin Ablett and Graham Child in the R50 Mini. For Wesley Guilford and Andrew Millington, it will be 9th. They were, unfortunately for them, not at the top of the R50 class this weekend, but there were still some good points for the pair to add to their season tally. Julian Fouquet and Julia Perry were having a great run this weekend. The times were good and they were fighting for the lead in the R50 class. They'd settle for 2nd in the class by the finish, 8th place overall. And taking the R50 class win this weekend in Yorkshire would be Jack Birch and Mike Jode. They took that win in the class by 35 seconds, close to some of the R53 crews as well. And in that R53 class, it would be Rob Fisher and Charlotte Wainwright, who take 6th place, as well as 6th place on the overall Mini Challenge. A fantastic debut after switching from the DS3 R3. For John Day and Paul Stringer, it would be 5th place in the class and overall. The pair just 23 seconds up from Fisher by the finish. And just ahead of them, 18 seconds ahead to be exact, were William Lumley-Hones and David Robson, clearly trying on their very first rally, ending up sideways through the Gale Rig stage on their way to a 4th place overall finish in the Mini Rally Challenge. Onto the final podium here in the Mini Rally Challenge then, and taking 3rd place will be Mark Jones with Michael Munday alongside. They'd had a good advantage over 4th as well by the end of the rally. It was pretty close up to 2nd place ahead though, as Gareth Humphries and Adam Burkill would end the event in that position, but only 36 seconds ahead by the end of the event's 4 stages. And taking the victory would be Tom and Sue Hind. They were going well, taking the win by just over a minute and a half by the finish. Some strong times being set by the husband and wife pair this weekend. At the end of an exciting Trackrod Rally Yorkshire then, the results in the Mini Rally Challenge ended up like this. As well as the Mini Rally Challenge, the Trackrod Rally Yorkshire would see a number of other championships doing battle on these iconic stages, and also taking part on a Friday night stage around Dalby with the British Historic Rally Championship competitors. Unfortunately, the stage will be stopped after an accident for Adam Milner, meaning no frontrunners could make it through, and that means no overall results to report from the opening day in the dark. So we're on to the next morning's stages, and it would be the early lead for Dan Mennell and John Roberts, an impressive one at that. It would actually be the 3rd leader though in as many stages this morning, showing just how close the competition is this weekend. 2nd place for now, indeed, one of the crews who'd led the event so far will be Matthew Robinson and Hannah McKillop. Matthew on his home stages too, and he wouldn't want to be taking anything other than the victory in that new Rothmans-ish livery car. For Richard Hill and Patrick Cooper, it will be 3rd place now. This pair still in with a chance of taking the overall BHRC title. They end the morning above their main 2 rivals for the series, a good boost to that possibility. And in fact, one of those crews, Mark Higgins and Carl Williamson in the TR7, wouldn't even make it past our cameras due to a double puncture. That meant they wouldn't score this weekend. Former BHRC champions Ben Friend and Cliff Simmons get through the morning stages with some good pace, putting them in 4th place overall. It was all quite close at the top as well, only 4.7 seconds in it to Hill up ahead. Nick Elliott and Dave Price had a little trouble to start the day, putting the car off the road and into the trees. Thankfully, it could have been a lot worse, and although they dropped down the leaderboard, they would continue, in fact, setting a fastest time overall on the very next stage. One pair moving the right way on the leaderboard, though, as the morning went on, were Paul Thompson and Josh Davison. They would end the morning 5th place overall, 6.4 seconds back from Friend. And local Yorkshire Rally Mafia legend Steve Bannister with Callum Atkinson alongside wouldn't be far behind either. They reached the end of the morning stages in 6th overall, gaining a few positions as the morning went on. Richard Jordan will be out this weekend with Sam Collis in the co-driver's seat and loving every minute of it as well. They were hot on the heels of Bannister, just 1.1 second the difference after 4 stages this morning. There was frustration though for Seb Perez and Gary McElhaney. They'd dropped down the standing a little today. Having led the event overall on stage 2, they reached the end of the morning in 8th overall. 23 seconds off that lead that they'd held earlier in the rally, and it was all about the championship at this point as well. For Rudy Lancaster and Guy Weaver, it would be 9th. They were clearly trying, maybe a little too hard in places as they overshot one of the junctions in Gale Rig, but getting away with it with thankfully nothing to hit, they could get going again with only a small amount of time lost. Meanwhile, rounding out the top 10 overall were James Lepley and Simon Jones. No George Lepley this time out. He was supporting brother James after they'd struggled to get the gearbox fixed on the Galant. James had been up in 8th, but the last stage of the morning would see him drop a couple of places on the overall leaderboard. So here's a look at how the Historic Cup leaderboard is shaping up after the first morning stages here in Yorkshire. Into the afternoon stages then, and we'd lose Matthew Robinson and Hannah McKillop before they even passed our cameras, the brakes seizing on at the end of the previous stage. There'd be some change then in the top 10, with Gavin Edwards and Karen Tomlinson climbing the leaderboard to take that 10th spot by the end of the rally. It would be a move the right way for Ian and Dan Evans as well. They make it up as far as 9th place. And Rudy Lancaster and Guy Weaver stay out of trouble to get to the end of the rally 1 place higher in 8th. A good result for the pair, putting on a good show as always for the spectators here in Yorkshire. James Lepley and Simon Jones gain some time back through the afternoon. Indeed, they go one better as well as they end the rally 7th place overall, beating Lancaster to that position by just half a second. And for Steve Bannister and Callum Atkinson, it was a good day out in his local woods. 6th place overall, and this would be the pair's best finish since the Trackrod last year. A welcomed result. It hadn't been far off being a position higher either, as they were in a battle with Richard Jordan and Sam Collis. But it would be advantage Jordan, as the pair reached the end of the rally just 3.2 seconds faster to take that 5th spot. Richard Hill and Patrick Cooper were doing all they could to keep their championship fight alive. That much was obvious, and a 4th place finish was a good way to end the weekend, giving them 3rd place finishing points from this round as well. Their focus now turning to the Anglo-Caledonian Rally double-header point-scoring round in November. For our earlier rally leaders though, Daniel Mennell and John Roberts, it would unfortunately not for them be victory this time out. They do stay on the podium to take a fantastic 3rd place. They'd held the lead right up until the final stage of the rally, which is surely a positive that they can take away to the next round. But on a charge and gaining some time back as a result on the overall leaderboard, it was 2nd place for Seb Perez and Gary McElhaney. After their closest competition failed to finish this weekend, a maximum score would be the perfect way to go into the final double scoring round in November, as they look ahead to the possibility of taking the championship title in 2024. But taking victory this weekend is showing that they still had what it takes to top the British Historic Rally Championship scene for Ben Friend and Cliff Simmons. A strong drive from the pair, seeing them take victory here in Yorkshire by just 6.1 seconds. So battle royale here in Yorkshire, with the historic crews on their way back to the finish in Filey. The results at the end of the event looked like this. Trackrod Rally Yorkshire would be the penultimate round of the Pro Tyre BTRDA Rally Series, and with a number of class and overall titles still to be concluded, it was a gloves-off battle to the finish. After a disappointing debut in the new car, Matthew Hurst and Declan Deere were keen to show what they could do in the Skoda. The BTRDA title out of reach, but they had a point to prove. And what better way to do that than lead the event at the midpoint by 10.5 seconds after 4 stages. Elliot Payne and Patrick Walsh come here with a job to do. Win the round, get maximum points, secure the title. But as it stands, 2nd place for the pair wasn't going to do. They'd have to see if there was anything else to give through the afternoon. But with Elliot still recovering from a broken wrist, that wasn't going to be easy. The championship fight was a little more complicated for Russ Thompson and Stephen Link. The B13 pair needed to finish at least 2nd and ahead of Payne, so the odds were stacked against them. And when you factor in that the last time a B13 car won the BTRDA Gold Star was 2012, well, you know what they're up against. They wouldn't give up until they had to. They're lying 3rd for now, the wrong side of Payne on the results, though, crucially. Alistair Ginley and Craig Thorley would make a good start to the rally with 4th place, just outside the podium positions. Only 3 seconds between them and Thompson up ahead, mixing it well and truly with our BTRDA crews. And Daniel Sigurðarson and Asta Sigurdardóttir would be enjoying another strong start in the polo. They'd end the morning 5th place overall. They'd actually been up as high as 3rd over the earlier stages though. 2017 BTRDA champions Stephen Petch and Michael Wilkinson would be looking for a strong result on their local event. They'd start to gain some more pace as well with each passing stage, ending the morning 6th place on the overall leaderboard. Local pair Phil and Simon Pickard will be lucky to even be here at the end of the morning loop. The pair getting this corner all wrong and ending up getting themselves out of one ditch and into the next. Thankfully keeping their foot in, no damage, and able to get back on the stage and end the morning with 7th. Daniel Hyans and Rob Fagg will be out in the Graham Coffee Fiesta this weekend, and things were going well for the pair. They end the morning 8th place overall. Joe Cunningham and Josh Beer hadn't been out since the Northwest Stages at the start of the season, and that was an asphalt event as well. So they'll be getting back into the swing of things through the morning stages. They end stage 4 in 9th place overall. And rounding out the top 10 would be Alan Carmichael and Michael Gilbert. A new pairing for this weekend, but they had plenty of experience between them to be on track for a good finish. Fastest of the two-wheel drive crews at this stage would be Rob Wright and Mark Fisher, the former Silver Star champions, lying in 19th place overall at this stage, as well as leading the B12 class. And speaking of the Silver Star, leading the way there will be Andy Davison and Tom Murphy, who were looking at adding another strong score to the season tally, and they were currently going the right way about doing that. Behind Davison and Murphy on the Silver Star order will be Nick Dobson and Jonathan Turnbull alongside for this weekend. A local motor club member from the Trackrod Motor Club with some local knowledge to share of these stages, no doubt. And they were getting on well, lying in 2nd in the category, 23rd overall. In the Bronze Star, it was still all to play for, but the ball was certainly in Nigel and Kaz Jenkins' court. They needed to go flat out as usual to keep the championship alive, and that's exactly what they were doing by the midpoint of the event. Chasing them down and pushing that micro well will be Ashley Francis Adams and Mark Ammons. They had around 25 seconds to find though if they wanted to change the positions around through the afternoon. So with the morning complete here in Yorkshire, here's how the results at the top are looking. Onto the afternoon stages here at Trackrod Rally Yorkshire. Just 2 for the crews, but they were the longest of the event. And there'd be no change in the two-wheel drive overall lead. Rob Wright and Mark Fisher taking that position with 18th overall. No change to the Bronze Star through Dalby or Langdale either, as Ashley Francis Adams and Mark Ammons do all they can but have to settle for 2nd at the end of the day. It did, however, mean that the fight would go to the last round in a few weeks' time. Nigel and Kaz Jenkins then do what they came here to do, winning the 1400s and keeping that Bronze Star Championship title fight alive. In fact, provisionally, that would give Kaz the title. But one thing was for sure, we'd be looking at a good fight at the Cambrian in October. There was change in 2nd place in the Silver Star though. Lee Ashbury and Ian Jones stepping up to take that position, taking 23rd overall. And a few places further up on the overall order would be Andy Davison and Tom Murphy. And they'd be happy to come away with the win in the Silver Star and some valuable points to their season total in the Sunbeam. On to that top 10 then, and it will be Daniel Hyans and Rob Fagg dropping down the order a couple of spots to round out the top 10. Someone who had been consistent all day and hasn't changed his results was Joe Cunningham. Josh Beer alongside, they keep hold of that 9th place that they'd previously held on the morning loop of stages. No more ditches visited, although they had threatened it. Phil and Simon Pickard would take 8th place overall this weekend, a drop of 1 position through the afternoon stages, but a good result. And Liam Clark and Emily Easton Page would make some good progress on the leaderboard here in Yorkshire through the afternoon. stepping up a good few positions to end the rally 7th overall. Former champions Stephen Pett and Michael Wilkinson put in some strong times to take 6th, one of their better results for the season, so they'd be happy with that, especially on home turf. It was nothing short than a heroic performance for Russ Thompson and Stephen Link. They'd have a bit of a moment on the penultimate stage as well, losing some time with an overshoot, but that dropped them down the order into 5th place. And that means the championship is now out of reach this season after such a good battle. Just missing out on the podium positions and mixing it with our BTRDA crews with a bit of local knowledge helping along the way would be Alistair Ginley and Craig Thorley. They were on the pace all day, finishing just 7 seconds off 3rd place. And on to the podium positions. In 3rd, it was Daniel Sigurdsson and Asta Sigurdottir. They were going well in the polo, and this was another valuable points finish and a podium as well for the championship campaign. A great penultimate round of the season for the Icelandic pair. Elliot Payne and Patrick Walsh had 2 things in their sights. A win on home soil, but that wasn't going to happen this weekend. They ended in 2nd place, but they had now done enough to get them the 3rd consecutive championship in a row for Elliot, making history once again here in the BTRDA Gold Star this weekend in 2nd place. But if it was a point that Matthew Hurst and Declan Deer came here to prove, they had well and truly done that. Happy not only to have the pace, but to also make sure that they are in with a fighting chance of being one of our championship protagonists going into next season, surely. We're looking forward to 2025 already, but what a win for Matthew Hurst and Declan Deer in the Skoda. So we reach the end of the Trackrod Rally. Here is a reminder of the overall results. A heady mix of rally action on both gravel and asphalt then for today's show, and a 2024 roll call of overall champions. Congratulations to Callum and Jack on the asphalt, and congratulations to our 3-time Gold Star champion here in the Pro Tyre BTRDA, Elliot Payne, with Patrick Walsh alongside for this year's title charge. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Care 40 for Rateable Crest Titans.